so high I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind.
Right, we are all set.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another FPVFC Town Hall. We got Dave, Dan, Alex, and then obviously myself, and maybe Rob will jump on here in a little bit. But I don't have a ton of stuff this evening. Everything I have is going to be related to the FAA or the FCC tonight. So there's some stuff going on there. I don't have a lot of other news that is relevant, I think, at this time. But we'll go ahead and go through a couple of things that the FAA is doing. And then we'll kind of jump over to the FCC and see what they've got going on. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. All right. So I believe I touched on this either the last one or the one before that. I can't remember. But FAA launched a new API for law enforcement and a couple other entities. And this is what it is. It's the FAA Discover tool is what they're calling it. This is from the FAA's own website, and it goes over what Discover is. So the FAA has created a new capability to support federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement personnel when they are responding to incidents involving drones, also referred to as unmanned aircraft systems. This capability is known as the Drone Information Safety Compliance Verification and Reporting, which all comes together to be the Discover tool. It allows law enforcement access to small UAS information, including registration and airspace authorization records. Discover is an FAA information service that supports authorized law enforcement decision-making. It does not provide enforcement authority, detection capability, or real-time airspace monitoring. Currently, FSLTT, which is an abbreviation for federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial, law enforcement can request drone operator related information such as registration, operational waiver, and airspace authorization by contacting agents at the FAA Law Enforcement Assistance Program. Discover is an FAA system that brings together information from the FAA's drone zone and low altitude authorization and notification capability databases. It takes information from submitted requests by authorized users, checks for matches against the drone zone and LANC databases, and provides any matching records as a response to the query. External authorized agencies that have entered into the data sharing agreement with the FAA connect to Discover through an application programming interface that allows secure exchange of information between each agency's systems. The external agency maintains their own interface and sets of authorized users that can access it, often via a web portal with a secure login. Authorized users managed by an external agency then log in through the interface and can submit requests for information to Discover. It enables law enforcement to enter identifying information about a drone of interest, such as remote ID position information, serial number, or registration number, and receive available FAA-related information if a match exists.
Seems like something that should have existed years ago.
Yes.
One would imagine.
What I'm surprised at is it gives access to Lance requests, and controllers don't even have that either.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
I was thinking, Josh, they could rename it, and so I was thinking the Mass Incident Raid Asset Non-Compliance Drone Assistance, or Miranda.
the fact that you came up with that on the spot is hilarious. Oh, that's awesome. Let's see. How does it work? So, access to Discover by non-FAA law enforcement is managed by the Department of Homeland Security through their geospatial information infrastructure. For guidance on how to, well, we don't need guidance. So, law enforcement authorized to use the service provides one or more of the following pieces of information: the serial number, which can be obtained by receiving a remote ID broadcast message, which contains the drone serial ID, reading the serial number from the manufacturer's identifying markings, the FAA registration number, which is labeled on the drone by the registered owner if the drone has been registered with the FAA, and if the owner has put that number on there. Location and date range, which may be used when querying for airspace authorization records. Discover returns available FAA registration and authorization information associated with the information provided if a matching record is found. What information can Discover provide? With a serial number or registration number, it can provide name, address, phone number, remote ID serial number, registration number, and aircraft info. If you do a location, area, and date range, it will come back with drone zone airspace authorization record and Lance airspace authorization record. So
they could basically just ask for any drones that were in this area during this date range? Like,
yes.
Pretty broad.
Yeah, it does seem so, right? So that rolls back into our favorite and I say favorite in a demonstrative way. New, what do you call that? NOTAM that has been gone out. So,
a lot of that stuff is just whatever you happen to have put into the drone zone when you registered things.
Right.
But that other one where they can just blanket query for any drones that were in this area during this date range seems, a little open to potential abuse there.
Hey Dan, good point on that. This would, while they stipulate a date range, that suggests that they're capturing information, which of course says that this is, so broadcast has now become a network.
Well, I'm guessing they're capturing, like, when you do a request for authorization to fly in a certain, you do the Lance thing.
Yeah.
So that would be, I would assume, kept for a long time.
Yep.
So the drone zone would be, the waiver process, that kind of thing, whereas Lance would be those one-off. So I would imagine that gets logged for quite a while. So
I guess one thing I'd be curious for the airspace authorizations is if it would have any of the stipulations from the authorizations. Like, generally when you get an airspace authorization through drone zone for something, it's like, oh, you have to call the tower beforehand, or you have to do XYZ. I wonder if the law enforcement will be able to get that information, because that could determine whether or not that person's complying with their own authorization or not.
correct.
Versus Lance, it's just a green light to go.
Correct. Yeah. So I would say the drone zone would be the more complex operations, right? Versus the standard Lance. And I would imagine that they would probably have access to that full document. So that's just me, guesstimating. But so it says, note, Discover is an informational support service. It supports decision making by authorized users, but does not independently provide a complete or real-time picture of airspace activity. Results depend on the information provided and may not be available for all drones or operations. So it says capabilities and limitations. Discover does return available FAA registration and airspace authorization information associated with the provided drone identifier. such as remote ID, serial number, or registration number. Allow authorized users to check whether a drone may have associated FAA records. Provide information that may help law enforcement contact a registered drone operator when available. Provide access to certain airspace authorization records when applicable. Support law enforcement decision making by providing FAA related information, or provide information in support of situational awareness, and return results based on available data and user access permissions. It does not detect, track, or monitor drones, does not identify drones or operators independently, does not identify non-compliant or unauthorized drones, does not provide a complete real-time picture of all drone activity in an area, does not determine operator intent or distinguish between lawful and malicious activity, does not provide law enforcement or mitigation authority, and does not function as real-time clearance or approved drone list whitelisting systems. Important consideration: Discover only returns information based on identifiers provided by the user. It does not receive or ingest remote ID signals directly. Discover associates provided identifiers with FAA records. It does not determine the identity of a drone without user provided information. A lack of results does not necessarily indicate non-compliance. Some drones or operations may not require FAA registration or authorization, such as under 250 grams. FAA does not collect information on all drone operation, and not all activity is reflected in available records. Additional investigation may be required to assess the nature of an operation, and enforcement actions and operational decisions remain the responsibility of appropriate authorities, and results depend on the information provided and may vary based on access level and data availability.
It's interesting. I don't think anywhere it said that it would return information on if you're flying recreationally or Part 107, like if the drone was registered as one or the other or the operator. I don't think that would be something they could figure out, which does
Well, I
change
think,
whether or not what you're doing is following the rules.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time, and it's been a while since I've done a Lance request, but I believe it does ask you if you are flying recreationally or under Part 107.
Yes, but what information did it say they would get back from Lance?
It does.
Let's see.
It says it would give them the Lance authorization, so maybe it shows up there.
Yeah. So, most law enforcement's access discover information indirectly through established partners. FSLTT law enforcement can request information by working through DHS partners such as fusion centers or contacting their local FAA LEAP agent. And then you can get authorized FSLTT access. So, at any rate, this is now a thing. Probably should have been a thing a long time ago. I feel like this should be the only thing that remote ID should be used for. And I think we talked about this when remote ID was first rolling out, that only law enforcement should have access to that information.
Yeah, we've
However,
always sort of had the question, like, so how does law enforcement have access to that information? Like, how are they supposed to get anything related to remote ID and who's flying?
Yeah, and before they had to go through their LEAP program, right, to get that information.
Yes.
And that could be a lengthy process. But on the flip side, having the general public have access to that. I mean, they don't have access to registration information and stuff like that. However, they do have access to track remote ID signals. So,
My curiosity is how secure the vetting process is to get access to this, because I'm curious if I were to try to go through the process, if I could get access to the system just for saying, hey, try to sign up for this.
Overview of the application process can be found here.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I know.
you do have to be part of state, local, or territorial local law enforcement. So, I would plead with anyone, please don't don't create a fraud situation. If you're law enforcement and you want to do this, great. We're very interested. Our guy Rob Robertson is very aware of this, and we can ask him. But if you're not law enforcement, we really don't recommend that you apply for this.
yeah.
Looks like
Yeah,
you
this
just
is
have to
going
go
through
to
the
The
that.
curiosity of how secure it is.
Yeah, like if
Agreed,
you went
absolutely.
to gii.dhs.gov/gii, what does it ask you?
Exactly. Yeah, that's fine.
Exactly.
Yep. So this coupled with the idea that state and local law enforcement plus territorial law enforcement has the ability to, or have had delegated counter UAS. So now they have access for the information. They can take you out of the sky. So it remains to be seen how broad-based this is, because state and local and territorial need to expend budget to expand their own enforcement to budget to drone enforcement. Why would they bother if it's not a huge issue? But the tools are there, and their tools are coming along for them as well. We've talked about, and Josh mentioned it, remote ID should be used for remote ID. When the rule came out, it was explicit that remote ID will not be used for detect and avoid. Guess what was all through the Part 108 NPRM? That remote ID, network remote ID, will be used for detect and avoid. So we're seeing remote ID ramping up. It is absolutely one of the important aspects that the FAA is interested in making sure that we register drones and we utilize remote ID. So this is part of the, here we go. More, at least, tools for enforcement. We'll see what the reality of enforcement becomes as this rolls out.
Yep. All right. FAA seeks input on drone integration at airports. So the Department of Transportation component will use stakeholder responses to shape the FAA's operational evaluations and standard setting as unmanned aircraft systems proliferate. So the FAA is collecting information about the evolving operational and infrastructure needs of airports, given the increasing integration of unmanned aircraft systems. The FAA aims to catalog and inventory best practices for airport design standards and standalone facilities called drone ports as part of the request for comment published in the Federal Register on Monday. The Department of Transportation component wants to interview representatives from equipment manufacturers, unmanned aircraft system vendors, the military, and other stakeholders. After the comment period closes next month, the FAA will use responses to inform a report that will then shape operational evaluations and standard setting tied to the integration of drones. The information gathering effort comes amid heightened focus on drone and counter-drone technologies. The FAA laid out plans to create an office overseeing the integration of drones and other advanced aviation technologies as part of its broader organizational overhaul beginning in January. Just days later, the FAA reopened a request for information centered around the handling of UAS and proposed policies for location tracking, data sharing, and detection technologies. The spotlight on drones extends beyond Department of Transportation. The Department of Homeland Security launched an office focused on UAS in January with the goal of rapidly procuring and deploying the technology. The Federal Emergency Management Agency awarded millions of dollars in grants for building out counter-drone capabilities to states hosting FIFA World Cup 2026 festivities. Some host cities have said the grants have yet to come, presenting problems for planning and preparation. One of the greatest security risks facing our nation today is the malicious use of unmanned aircraft systems, or drones, House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Andrew Garbarino said during a February hearing. The prospect of weaponized drones being used to attack mass gatherings in open-air stadiums is a scenario that keeps policymakers and law enforcement professionals up at night. So let me click through here because I was actually looking for this and I didn't see this. Let's see. Submitted by April 22nd. I was actually looking for the letter here, or the actual notice. Get the PDF here. All right. Clearance of a new approval of information collection. It's relatively short. Let's see. Summary. The Federal Register collection involves conducting research in the form of written responses or interviews on drone port operators, private entities, original equipment manufacturers, unmanned aircraft system industry, vendors, academia, representatives of the military, aviation stakeholders to catalog current and planned drone port planning, design, and infrastructure needs. So that's what this guy is.
Can we
So,
recommend that they set up the headquarters of this in Newark, New Jersey, with a global satellite in Gatwick? Sorry. Sorry.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So currently they have no formal FAA definition of a drone port. Based on results of this research effort, the FAA may develop a formal definition for a drone port. Oh man, they like that drone port rule, huh? Or name. All right. So good times there. Next up, this is something Dave sent us via email. I had an opportunity to kind of read through this, and really what this is it's not really a rulemaking. It's not really anything. It's more just a notice. And it goes through the waiver process, the Section 927 waiver process, and explains how they do things. So I'm not going to go through the whole huge thing here, but the FAA identified 4 considerations to use when evaluating whether the Section 927 waiver process is the appropriate path for relief. Safety, efficiency, and enabling innovation form the bedrock of these eligibility considerations. Some scenarios could present all 4 considerations, while others could present just 1. So operations with minimal public impact or that are unlikely to garner significant public interest may be better handled through the Section 927 waiver process. Some unmanned aircraft operations would not significantly affect the public or other airspace users. The reasons can vary. They can be time-limited, geographically constrained, or minimally intrusive. For example, aircraft operating in a closed testing environment are unlikely to affect the public or other stakeholders. Similarly, operations to test new equipment or components can be limited in scope and duration to avoid having an impact on the public or other stakeholders. When considering whether an operation would have a minimal impact, the following questions would be relevant to FAA analysis. Would the operation generate significant public interest? Equipment, operating procedures, timing, location, and durations of operations could be factors. Would the operation affect public stakeholder equities? For example, would the public or other airspace users have to adjust or change routine activities? Is the purpose of the operation to demonstrate or test new products or operating procedures? Are public stakeholders likely to provide useful information to inform the FAA's decision? For example, public engagement during research and development may be premature. Similarly, public engagement might not be necessary because limited operations may be unlikely to affect public or other stakeholders. Then there's a high-value limited case. High-value limited cases are those that are used infrequently but nonetheless provide important societal benefits. These use cases typically involve activities that do not require broad regulatory change, but the societal value they bring merits regulatory flexibility. For example, an operator could seek regulatory relief to conduct important public safety operations such as disaster relief, first responder, search and rescue missions. These types of operations tend to be limited to a specific situation and provide an overwhelming benefit to members of the public when they are most vulnerable and in need. Under those circumstances, FAA would consider, based on the safety case presented and the high value benefits, whether public stakeholders would be likely to provide information that would help inform FAA decisions. Emerging use cases are those that introduce technologies or types of operations often without precedent. These use cases play a role in supporting industry-led U.S.-based emerging technology innovation. American drone dominance depends on U.S. agencies accelerating testing and safe commercialization of drone technology. FAA would also consider whether an iterative authorization process would help incubate innovative safety concepts for the emerging use case. For example, that for the FAA to learn from and keep pace with constantly evolving and iterative technology cycle, FAA's authorization cycle will also have to be iterative. In these cases, public input might not provide information likely to inform FAA's decision without unduly delaying the technological innovation cycle. In these cases, Section 927 waiver process would balance the need for flexibility to keep pace with technological adjustments with the benefit of public input. Let's see. And then the last one would be other safety considerations. We won't really go through that. And then it goes through how to request a Section 927 waiver and frequently asked questions. So it's more just an explanation of the waiver process and kind of how that goes through this. It's really not a request for comment. It's not really anything. It's more just a kind of a
This
how
is what
to.
they're
So,
going to do. And Alex, do you feel that this is a change in the waiver process or an expansion of it?
so yes, there are two major things that I kind of took from this when I read through it the first time. The first is this this 927 waiver is essentially replacing the 44807 waivers. So for stuff for over 55-pound aircraft or delivery aircraft and stuff like that. That process, it used to be where you do a 44807 waiver, it it had to go through public comment. So you submitted all your stuff to, or an exemption. So it was a 44807 exemption. You had to send your manuals, all the same information that this waiver is still asking for. You sent to the FAA, and then it had to be published onto the Federal Register for review for public comment by anyone to comment whether or not the FAA should grant your exemption or not. The FAA would then have to take that in consideration in approving your request for exemption for those operations. But this 927 waiver looks like it takes out the public comment portion of that. So it's a way to kind of get around the public comment portion and also allow for privatized commercial operations that aren't necessarily for the public benefit, but maybe for the company's benefit directly. And so it lowers the burden for getting these exemptions to, at least I see it as being able to progress in testing different operations a little bit faster because that public comment period adds a significant timeline to these exemptions. The second thing that I took out of this is it seems to indicate that this 927 waiver is a process to basically waive any regulation in any drone regulation that doesn't, even ones that don't necessarily have a clause for a waiver for them. So in the original rule in 107, there are things that it says that are waivable, and then there are things that says are not waivable. And so I think that the way I read this 927 thing is it opens up the door to waive some of the things that the FAA had said are not waivable.
Do you think
And one of
would it be ludicrous to request a waiver on a TFR, notably 6/4375? My tongue is somewhat in my cheek, but not totally.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking of it from a perspective of seeing if we could waive requests to 44809 and some of the recreational side of things.
So yeah, because
And
mostly
that's
waivers have to do with Part 107. However,
correct.
the FAA has made exceptions, formal exceptions to 44809, which theoretically were not supposed to be the case. So,
Well, 44809 does have a statement in there that the administrator can make adjustments. But I think this could be a process that we could use the 927 waivers to get those to get waivers to 44809 and adjustments to 44809. But that's the second major thing that I saw. It seems like it makes every regulation for applicable to drones waiverable versus just a small subset that was originally in the original codifications.
yes, yeah. So this one made my head explode when I was I woke up at 5 a.m. and started reading it, and I was not sufficient. I did not have enough coffee. I was not awake enough. It's possible that no matter how many times I read it, will I understand it. But thank you, Alex. That's a very
Appreciate
helpful.
that. Yeah, I did not pull that out of it, so thank you.
And we will likely continue to pour over this and welcome any external feedback on it, and we'll take up a couple of waivers on this. I like the idea, Alex.
Cool. All right. Last but not least, US FCC seeks industry feedback on drone and counter UAS communication protocol changes. All right. The FCC's Wireless Telecommunications Bureau and the Office of Engineering and Technology have issued a public notice seeking input on an array of reforms the Commission could take to achieve U.S. supremacy in drone technology manufacturing and operations. The proposal also covers various aspects of eVTOL and counter UAS. According to the notice, the production, deployment, and export of American aircraft systems or unmanned aircraft systems or drones and anti-drone defense systems have become core elements of our economic and military superiority. In addition, emerging technologies like electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft are expected to enable new capabilities for transporting cargo and people, including in hard to reach areas and in emergencies. By this public notice, the FCC's Wireless Telecommunications Bureau and Office of Engineering and Technology seek comment on a range of actions that the agency can take to further advance American drone dominance, said the text of the notice. The WTB and OET seek input on an array of reforms the Commission might take, including alleviating unnecessary regulatory burdens that frustrate drone deployment. How about availability of parts, including Commission rules or policies? Go ahead, Dave.
Or covered lists that have nothing to do with FCC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Including Commission rules or policies such as sitting or device certification that may create friction for the growth of a competitive, secure, and innovative domestic drone ecosystem. Ensuring that American drone manufacturers and users have access to sufficient spectrum for drone testing and operations, including services to the public. Facilitating and encouraging American firms' investment in drone capabilities, developing infrastructure, and offering innovative and advanced capabilities. Ensuring that U.S.-based manufacturers and trusted suppliers have the regulatory clarity and technical access needed to scale production and secure investment. Coordinating more effectively with other federal agencies to align spectrum policies with national security imperatives and reduce the risk posed by untrusted foreign origin UAS operating in U.S. airspace. Bleh. Streamlining the FCC's experimental licensing rules to facilitate more agile testing of UAS communication systems, including beyond visual line of sight links, command and control systems, detect and avoid technologies, and secure navigation tools across a broader range of spectrum bands, establishing additional dedicated drone innovation zones or test beds in partnership with federal, state, academic, or private entities, and streamlining authorizations to help spur early stage experimentation and commercialization. Feedback on the proposals will be accepted up to the 1st of May. The FCC has been shifting the application process for UAS and counter UAS experimental licenses to warp speed, according to an accompanying agency statement. Since January 2025, the Commission has granted 227 UAS experimental approvals, and for the first time ever, 8 counter UAS experimental approvals. These include experimental licenses for use by the Department of War as part of the implementation of President Trump's Unleashing American Drone Dominance executive order. Compared to the previous 4 years from 2021 to 2024, approvals granted by the FCC for UAS conventional experimental license have increased by 68%. We seek comment on ways to modernize and streamline the experimental licensing process, specifically for UAS-related testing. Should the Commission consider establishing a dedicated UAS experimental license category with flexible terms tailored to drone developers, including longer durations, broader geographic coverage, or expedited renewals? Would a tiered licensing structure differentiating between academic, commercial, prototype, and production scale testing improve regulatory predictability and reduce administrative burdens? We also seek comment on whether the Commission should implement pre-cleared test ranges or corridors in coordination with FAA and NTIA, where licensees could conduct UAS experiments with reduced paperwork and faster approvals. We further seek comment on whether the Commission should explore blanket experimental authorization for qualified drone developers operating within a specified frequency bands and safety parameters. Would a modular plug-and-play approach where applicants can select from a set of pre-approved use cases, frequency bands, and technical standards streamline approvals while preserving necessary safeguards against harmful interference? Should the Commission also allow more flexible use of temporary and special temporary authority grants for UAS innovation, particularly in support of public-private test beds and emerging drone corridors? And finally, we see comment on the utility of our Part 5 experimental licensing rules for the testing of certain counter UAS technologies under controlled condition. Our current rules limit counter UAS to research and development purposes, not for operational mitigation or enforcement. Do these restrictions unduly inhibit commercial development of counter UAS?
Yeah,
Let's see. Go ahead, Dave.
this thing is just loaded with FCC overreach. This is going to take some more time to study and to look through. I think there are areas where it'd say, okay, that's good. And, the headline talks about the focus on spectrum, good. They keep talking about spectrum, but then they expand the discussion to test areas, additional research, limiting research and R&D to counter UAS. What the heck does the FCC have to do with that? Give me a break. Didn't think we limited research in this country. So lots of ripe territory to dig into this piece of work.
Yeah, definitely. So there's also use of LTE, 4G, 5G bands, and flexible use bands, and whether those should be continue to be allowed, because it says some commercial have used those bands where permitted. And then we also see comments on step the FCC can take to facilitate UAS or counter UAS spectrum access in the context of any pending interagency proceedings or efforts in which the FCC is involved. As UAS and counter UAS environment develops, providing a centralized information resource to assist UAS and counter UAS operators with equipment authorization, spectrum licensing, and waiver processes could expedite innovation. So there's a whole lot going on here.
Yeah, the FCC. I mean, if you read through this, you'd say, is this the FCC, the Department of Commerce, or the FAA? And so
Right.
It's all over the place.
So
Yeah, it is.
related to using the 5G whatever networks to connect and manage your drone, I think I saw a company recently saying that they're trying to sell a drone that uses it has a Starlink receiver on it and uploads the video. And I think they were targeting police and search and rescue operations with that one.
That's good.
100%. Yeah, I saw that yesterday, I think.
Yeah, Quasi has put Starlinks on drones before for control. They've also used some Iridium satellites too. One of the things that we were discussing for the endurance drone was also putting a Starlink on there for long one-way missions or for like a long delivery mission type thing, so we don't have to worry about comms necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get that cleared with the FCC first to make sure that's allowed? Since
It's all on
putting limits on research.
It's all the Quasi has the authorizations, but also those are all on authorized. What's the ISM bands?
Yeah. Interesting.
So
So that is all I have today. Dave, what you got, sir?
I had just one thing, a shout out to our colleagues in the AMA. They worked hard to get House 6460. So it's passed the House and is on its way to the Senate. This is a Recreational Drone Empowerment Act, and it works to grant authorization for recreational UAS into E5 airspace. Now, is this a huge deal? No, but if you happen to be flying a model airplane or a drone in E5 airspace, yeah, it's a big deal. It'll be the difference between being able to fly and not. So our hats off to AMA for working with the House Aviation Subcommittee. This is not easy work. It was done very cleverly, and this is a good way to do work like this, in that if you look up HR 6460, it is one of the smallest or most brief pieces of legislation that we've ever seen, 3 or 4 pages. And it's just the insertion of a couple words, but it's really important. So thanks to the AMA, good for them. And we've spoken and congratulated Tyler Dodds, the new executive director of the AMA. So we're always happy when someone like this does some work. And it was also bipartisan. So this piece of legislation is passed. It's through the House. Now, as I said, on to the Senate. And we would anticipate that it will pass there. So
could you explain more what is E5 airspace and why would you want to fly a drone or model airplane there?
It's and Alex, if maybe you can help me on when E5 occurs, but it's in and around an airport of a certain type of airport that has Class E airspace.
Yeah, so E5 I believe is the extension of a Class D airport. So the Class D airport, but then sometimes there's a little bit of an extension, and that's
like the
I believe that's an E5. Yeah, it's an E5 extension for that airport. I believe it's like sometimes that area is controlled, sometimes it's not, kind of a thing. But prior, I believe those areas were not able to get authorizations or something, and that's what this is going after. But that's my understanding of what the E5 is off the top of my head. If I'm remembering it correctly, it's just an extension to Class D airspace at some airports.
So I'm pretty sure the AMA has some fields that are close to airports, and they weren't able to fly exactly where they would like to when the rules changed, and now they've got the rule modified slightly so they can fly basically probably how they've been flying forever anyway.
Probably, but but good for them for getting it approved. Yeah, I know I've flown model airplanes at a couple of AMA fields, and you look over and you're looking at a control tower, and it's like, oh boy, this doesn't feel right. I'm a guest here at this event. Not sure I want to check out my UAS facility maps. So, and Josh, that's all I had.
All right. I did find that drone that has the Starlink. It's the new Brink drone.
Yeah, that sounds familiar now that you say that.
I'll pull it up here. So it's a Brink Guardian. So that's the drone right there. You can see the Starlink on the top of it there. He aims to Brink Drones founder and CEO Blake Resnick has a big vision from the company's largest ever drone can accomplish. It's to replace the police helicopter and to build the most capable 911 response drone ever. So it's the world's first Starlink connected drone. Integrated panel on the top of the device gives the drone unlimited range anywhere in the world, maintaining a reliable data link when traditional cellular or terrestrial infrastructure is unavailable. Drone can also be paired with Guardian Station, a robotic charging nest that automatically swaps batteries and helps the drone to quickly redeploy to a new mission without having to wait for any charging downtime. So
network remote ID. Here we come.
Yeah, yes, satellites.
Right.
Right. So there you go. All right. Let's see. Alex, anything for us this evening?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Dan, anything for us to wrap us up, sir?
Nope. Nothing else.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I appreciate it. Definitely a lot going on in the FAA world. Definitely a lot going on in the FCC world. But we'll keep tabs on it. We'll see what we'll dig into some of this stuff and see what we can come out of it with. So I appreciate y'all, and hope y'all have a great night and a great week, rest of your week, and get out and do some flying.
Here, here. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.